Hello.
In the parents' lounge on a Thursday night special. We had to get rid of our opening because somebody kept claiming copyright laws.
Copyright law.
You own the rights to it. It was some dude who was spamming us and wanted some money that he won't get from us. So welcome to the Thursday nights Parent Lounge special, where we tell dad stories, and we have a bunch of comics who are going to come in and tell stories about their dads. Good luck trying to copyright that. Hey, everybody. Listen, this is a real show. I know it's not Tuesday, it's Thursday, and my wife is not buying it. She's like, "You're doing what?" But yeah, we have a ton of friends coming in who are going to tell the greatest dad stories that they can. Because it's Father's Day this weekend. Jason?
Yes.
I'm Jamie Kaler. I'm joined by my buddy, Jason Gowan. And we
Hello.
are out live to numerous different sites. And apparently YouTube's kind of popping for us, right? A lot of people are watching on YouTube.
Yeah, it's all of a sudden become a booming parents' lounge oasis. We have like a ridiculous amount of following there all of a sudden.
Here's what's happening. Parents are coming out of the cave that was the horror, and are starting to reconnect with humans again. Like even when we were down for the pandemic, we couldn't go virtual because we were so destroyed from having children that I was hanging on by a thread, dude.
I'm still hanging on, but it is better because now we can actually see other human beings.
Yeah, well, you couldn't see your in-laws or grandparents for a long time, and it's nice to see them, but it's also nice for them to watch your children. And now that everyone's kind of back out in the world, you can go, "Hey, it's great to see you, Grandma. Can you watch the kids for a couple hours because I have to go on the internet?"
And I haven't, and I just recently, after we got vaccinated, finally can release my children back into the nethers in which they came.
I thought you were going to say the wild, like you were going to release them in the wild, like it was a catch.
They're basically feral. They're basically feral.
I was going to have, we're going to have I have a bunch of friends who are comics, and they're all going to come in tonight, and they are going to tell dad stories and stuff. And you and I will tell some dad stories too. But I thought about it's funny to think about your dad and the stories that you remember from your childhood. But what do you think when your child is doing this format of a show 25, 30 years from now? What will be the story they tell about you?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I think he's probably going to frown, number one, that I stopped Cool Ranch Doritos for breakfast. He's going to be pissed at you that you stopped it. Yes, he's still angry about it. It's been a week. I mean, it's been weeks, and he's still mad about it. So I think he's going to hold on to that. I think my youngest is going to remember the time as an infant he stabbed me in the face with a fork, which happened yesterday.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're not positive memories, Jamie. I'm hoping that one day we're going to cross that corner, and it'll finally be this magical parenthood that everybody talks about. Yeah. It's funny. I think back to my dad, and I'm the youngest of 6, and we'll talk about it later because we have people coming in. But the memories of me as a little boy with my dad are, I'll show you the pictures. That's me and my dad. Oh, Herb. His name was Herb. Oh, I loved you in Dennis the Menace. Yeah, I actually was pretty great in Dennis the Menace. That's my dad, Herb, and luckily I'm the second son born because my brother's name's Herb. And by the time they got to me, he tried to name me Basil. Really? Yeah. And my mother was like, "No, that's not happening." He tried to name me Basil after Basil Rathbone, who was like Sherlock Holmes in the 30s or something. Right. Yeah. I remember. I'm old, and my dad was old when he had me. I'm the youngest of 6, and we're spread out over 20 years. And so he fought, and that dude, that guy right there was a pilot in World War II. He flew. Was he really? Yeah, he's a ballsy cat. He was a total Mustang. He finished high school, but no college, but they needed pilots. So he went in. He did like 12 years, and then he got out, and the dude sold cars basically his whole life and raised 6 kids, to his credit. So that's pretty incredible.
I wish I was nicer to him. We've talked about that before, and I
We have, yeah, a little bit.
They will wish they were nicer to me.
My kids think they're nice to me, but I have apparently failed on explaining what nice is.
Yeah, we're still working on nice. My kids are so spoiled, but hey, we're going to be here for a while. We'll tell some of our own parenting stories coming up. But we have some great guests. Like my first friend coming in, he has to kind of go on pretty quick because he has a show tonight. He has been the head monologue writer for Conan O'Brien for 17 years.
Wow.
He's a fantastic comedian. I've done a ton of shows with him. Great dad. He's got some great kids, but I'm sure he's got some great stories about being an Irish Catholic kid from Boston. So please welcome my friend, Mr. Brian Kiley, today.
Basil, how are you?
Hey, dude. Now, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, thank mom. But now I kind of love that name, Basil. Yeah.
Imagine where your star would be if you'd went with Basil.
He got my middle name, though, because it's James, and my middle name is Peleg Hopkins Kaler, Peleg Hopkins Kaler. So he did some damage on his way out. He didn't leave, but he did a little bit of damage naming me. So I was tormented for my middle name as a kid. But yeah, Brian, what was your childhood like with your dad? I've heard some of your jokes before, and that's why I kind of reached out to talk to you about it.
Well, it's funny. So my dad was similar to yours. I had a World War II dad. And my dad was in the Battle of the Bulge. And actually, it's funny. My dad was in college. He was at Boston College. And my dad was a very smart guy, but he could not handle calculus. And then he dropped out of college. It was like he'd rather face the Nazis than calculus. It's basically what happened. So he dropped out and he went into the war. And so he was in the Battle of the Bulge, and it's funny because I think I talked about this in your other podcast. The movie The Battle of the Bulge stars Henry Fonda, and he plays Colonel Kiley. Now, my dad, that was a fictional character. My dad was a sergeant, but my older brother told all of his friends that was based on my dad. So they would come to his house, and they would say, "Were you in the war, Mr. Kiley? Were you in the Battle of the Bulge?" Uh-huh. And they would kiss my dad's ass thinking he was this incredible war hero, and my dad knew nothing about it. Like, he had no idea what was happening. But he definitely, it's the kind of thing where he didn't like loud noises. So when you were a kid, if you dropped something, it was like, what was that? And you're like, Jesus, calm down, And I remember one time I was having like a Sunday dinner at my grandmother's house. It was just my dad and me and him. And, he had the little fruit cup before the meal and whatever. He'd already had his meal and was in doing the dishes. My grandmother and I stirred the fruit cup. And she goes, "Oh, he's so jumpy." And I said, was he always like that? And she said, "No, just since the war." So it's like, oh, so just in the last 50 years. But prior to that, no.
That's so funny. They didn't. I mean, it was never really diagnosed.
No, absolutely.
Now people have like a bad day at Disneyland and think, "Oh, I have PTSD. I can't." If I hear the word roller coaster, I start to get sick to my stomach.
Well, that I can agree with. I mean, I do think I've had some Disney PTSD, but I see your point. I do think that generation, they were never going to go to a therapist or do anything like that. You know what I mean?
No.
Definitely not.
My father's therapist was Schlitz and 2 packs of Lucky Strikes a day.
Wow.
Yeah. He would sit at the table, and he was the same. Like, my father never saw action. Your father really saw like hardcore action in Battle.
He did, yeah, he did.
My father rolled a Jeep in Hawaii, but I didn't find it out till I was way older because it was like, your father was a pilot in World War II and all this stuff, and I was like, oh, really? He was getting in right at the end of the war, and so he never went overseas, but he did roll a Jeep, and his shoulder was messed up for like the rest of his life from rolling a Jeep in Hawaii.
So he had a war injury, at least. Yeah.
He did. He had a war injury, but it was just local Hawaiian tragedy. It was
my favorite story about my dad. So when he was in his 80s, his mid 80s, he's living in Florida, and and this neighbor moved in. the guy's about 50 years old, this German guy. And he says to my dad, have you ever been to Europe? And my dad says, yeah. And he said, have you been to Germany? Uh-huh. And he said, where did you go in Germany? And he said, well, we got as far as the Elbe River. And then there were no more questions. He was good.
That's so good. My father was the same. Like Archie Bunker was the good guy in all the family. Like my father was like, why is everyone disagreeing with him? He's the right one. And it was funny too, because we used to give him grief because to the day he died, he did not like Japanese people. He did not like and here's what's really crazy. Okay, my last name is Kaler. My whole life, he's like, we are full Irish. We are 100% Irish. And so I kept growing up Irish, and I would run into people. They go, well, Kaler's German. I go, we're not German. My father told me we're Irish. We are only Irish. We are 100% Irish. I think there's a little English in that guy. And then finally, one dude was like, Kaler's from Kohler. It's the coal man in Germany. And it turns out I'm pretty German.
That's so funny.
I'm German. I'm German.
There is a hint. There is a hint there.
He would not have it. He was like, we are not German. We are Irish. And he to the end. He was that guy. So it is kind of being slowly bred out. I'm sure our kids are going to grow up and hate the Russians, Afghanistan, Middle East, whoever the bad guy is in the movies of this era.
But, in fairness to those guys, and I'm not condoning, but it is the thing of that was like their Al-Qaeda. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if 50 years from now, say, hey, Al-Qaeda's not such a bad bunch of guys, we'd be like, whoa, what? You know what I mean?
There will be, guys from today will go back, like guys have gone back to Vietnam, and like reconciled with the next generation.
Yep.
But when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, my father didn't get over that. He never got over that. That was
yes, I don't think that generation got over that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because obviously you went to Boston College, you went in the writing world. Was there a point where you're like, I want to go military? And he goes, no, I made a terrible choice. I should have done calculus. You should go.
I was never tempted. It's funny because, I grew up post Vietnam, and going into the military there was a very anti-military attitude then with MASH and the Vietnam protests and all that kind of stuff that I was kind of too young for. So I was never tempted. But it's funny in retrospect, it's like, oh, you know what, that I think my older brother, who was a cop, I think he really wished he had gone to the military. I think for us, sometimes I think in a weird way, it would have helped me in comedy,
Maybe.
But I don't know.
Is your dad still around?
No, my dad died a few years ago. My dad died in 2011, and he died the very last day of the Red Sox season. And that year, the Red Sox had been in first place in September 1st. And then they couldn't win a game in September for whatever reason. They just had this tailspin and they fell apart. And it was kind of this classic collapse. And I flew to Florida, went to my dad's funeral. And at work, everybody knows what. Well, I'd come back and people would be offering their condolences. And about 20% of the people, they'd say, oh, I'm so sorry, man. And I'd say, thank you, whatever. And then they'd go, it's just their pitching. They just, and it's like, wait, they're, I thought they were talking about my dad and they're talking about the Red Sox. And about 20% of the conversations were like, oh, we're having two different conversations here,
In a way, maybe he knew to leave. That was the season. He's like, I don't even want to see the end of this season.
I've been down this road. We don't need this again. Yeah.
Red Sox fan till the end. Hey, Brian, I'm gonna let you go. I know you got to run to the show. Okay. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Brother. It was great to see you guys. All right, I'll see you later.
Take care, Brian.
That's so funny, dude.
What a funny
any military in your family at all, Jason? Anywhere back?
My grandfather on my mom's side was in the Army, and he was overseas, but I don't think he ever saw combat.
Yeah. I
don't know a ton about it, but
no.
And I know that he got a monkey while he was over there, that he had a pet monkey.
I went to the Philippines. We played golf and a monkey ran out and stole my ball. And
Did you try to take the monkey home?
If I could have caught him, actually, I would have taken him home. Yeah, he was pretty handy. He could run around and pick stuff up. Isn't that a Seinfeld episode? They get a pet monkey or something, or is that one of the ones they were talking about making? I don't know.
Possibly.
Let's bring in our next contestant. Let's bring in Mr. Lachlan Patterson. One of my favorite comics. We've done so many shows together. Let's bring in John Nixon too, since he's here, and we'll all hang as a foursome.
Hello, guys.
Hi.
Brother?
Good. Can you guys hear me okay?
I gotta tell you, with that crazy lamp over your head, you look like Jesus in a crown of thorns, right?
Oh, can I get up in the stars there somewhere? There we go.
Now he looks like the Grinch's dog when it has the reindeer antler on.
Yeah. How are you, brother? Are you getting ready for your Father's Day?
I am, man. I can't wait. I can't wait to just get a couple of hours just alone. Really,
what do you get special for Father's Day?
A couple hours alone. That's all I want. That's all I've asked for. Surfing. I call it surfing, but yeah.
Oh, I went today and bought myself my Father's Day presents. My wife was like, "Look, I don't know what you want. If you want something that you want I can give you in front of the kids, then go buy it." And so I bought some clothes and a cornhole.
Oh, you did?
I bought a cornhole championship board set. Yeah.
I have one in my yard.
For Father's Day.
That's such a Father's Day gift.
Such a Father's Day gift. And our other buddy John Nixon's in here. He's part of the Dadlands group. He's come in and he does dad rants for us a lot. So let's talk about Lachlan. Let's talk about your dad.
Doug Patterson.
Doug Patterson.
Let's talk about Doug.
I bought some insurance from him, I think, back in the day.
Oh yeah, you would have been a high school student at Sir Charles Tupper Secondary because he was the high school counselor.
Oh.
So that's where he would have sold it to you. Right? What a weird job.
Crazy.
My baseball coach, my hockey coach, my basketball coach, my soccer, like that was my dad. When I was a goaltender in soccer, he would sit behind the net and shout where to go to the point I just want to blow my brains out. But that was my dad.
I was going to say, I'm starting to understand why you're a comic, because comics are all damaged. And what was it like going? I've known some other friends who've had parents who worked at their school and were like, was this in high school?
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to, he didn't want me going to that school because he worked there. Which is fine. He also was always very protective of me, and it was considered the tougher school in Canada, in Vancouver. So
yeah, Canada's got a real tough side of the street there. It's like the Warriors. If they did the Warriors in Canada, it would just be a bunch of guys going, "Oh, you need to walk through here? Yeah, come on, right. Oh, you take your colors off or down, or whatever you want to do. It's all good there."
They wait 20 minutes before they apologize.
That's right. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry.
Yeah, they came around with hockey sticks and the whole shebang.
Hey, how's it going there? Well, talk about your dad. What was he like as a dad?
Yeah, he was great. He's great. He was a very hands-on dad. So he taught me everything, which is great. Now, he lives alone. He doesn't live alone. He lives with my mom on an island up in British Columbia, and he does everything in his bathrobe, just Crocs in a bathrobe. He does he chops wood in a bathrobe. He lives in the woods. And he went to the doctor the other day. This is weird. He goes into a doctor, and the doctor goes, you haven't had a prostate exam in 7 years. And he goes, oh, well, all right. And I guess I better make an appointment. And she goes, no, I'll just do it right now. And she just gives him a spur of the moment prostate exam, like no appointment, just no prep. I need at least like a month to prepare for a prostate exam for sure. I need to relax, Then she goes, I have to schedule a follow-up. So she calls him a month later and goes, hey, I got to do a follow-up. I got to come to your cabin where you live and give you a follow-up exam. Do you have any weapons in the house? Do you have any firearms? She said, I have to ask you that. And he goes, it depends. Are you going to pull the shit you pulled last time? So he's got a sense of humor, which I like.
That's my question, because my dad, I didn't really see it when I was younger, but as I got older, he had such an acerbic wit that sometimes it's the same with me. Like, a lot of people don't know I'm joking when I'm joking. Like, I say things, say it's so deadpan, people are like, wait, is Kaylor joking or not? I'm not sure. Even my wife's like, is that? I go, joking. My father was the same way, and I didn't see it. But I'm so much like him, even though I never thought I was. Are you kind of in the vein of your dad?
It sounds like a very German attribute there, don't you think? Just you don't know.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Sorry, my dad was a storyteller. He was one of those guys who, if he had a joke, he'd do the longest version of the joke, almost like Norm Macdonald, where you'd almost be like the telling of the joke was part of the joke.
Right.
I hope I figure out how to do that. I do love listening to him tell a joke, even though he always screws up the ending now, because he's 86. He's like, and then they Donnie, what? That's my mom. Donnie, what's the name of that guy? And then they just gets lost in a cloud of branches, and it ends very.
That's an even better telling of the joke. I would honestly enjoy that. That would be super funny. You have to do that as a bit, man. Your dad telling jokes. That's just really
goes funny. Nowhere. A joke that goes nowhere. I should. But
back to the top and just recruits around.
I sent him a shirt. For Father's Day. I don't know if you guys got your dad something, but I sent him a T-shirt that's got a picture of a dinosaur on it, and it says, "All my friends are dead," because it's just going to look great on him, I think. Walking around.
I love that shirt. Do you have any funny stories from when you were a kid? Like a crazy story that, my father never took me to a movie because he couldn't go 2 hours without smoking a cigarette.
I heard, dude, 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Wow.
He chain smoked, and so I would go, why aren't we going to the movies ever? And he's like, oh, I don't like something about he didn't like movies. But then I found out later he just couldn't go 2 hours without a cigarette. So he was like, he couldn't sit through a movie.
Just lied to.
But he was a good guy. But I think guys like back in those days, they just were doing the best they could. When he was a young guy, there was no pill. There wasn't the pill.
No.
All of a sudden you're like, we're here. Here we go. 6 kids later.
Those are the number one dads. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like that guy, he busted his ass. I kind of respect him. They were there the whole time, but I mean, I got it. He was like that. He had his vices.
My dad was tough too. That's another thing. He was tougher than me. Once he came down to visit me, and I had a rat in a trap. I found it. I could hear it flapping away, and it had gotten behind some stuff in our laundry room. Anyway, I pulled something back, and I saw it for a second, and I couldn't even look. I was so traumatized by a rat that was still dying in the trap, and I walked away, and I was so traumatized that my dad happened to be over. I said, Dad, I don't know who else to talk to. I know you're older, and we haven't been really dad for me for many years, but I'm going through something right now. I just saw a rat, and it was dying, and I'm really stressed out right now. And he goes, where is it? And I told him where it was, and he walks past me, and then he comes back 2 minutes later and puts his hand out, and he's holding the bloody trap. And he goes, there you go. Like barehanded, just holding a bloody trap. Like I wanted the trap still.
Are you still like that? Like I was catching squirrels by the apricot tree. Has been a recurring storyline on the show because I'm trying to make apricot wine. So I can't even kill like squirrels. So I kept catching these squirrels in a trap and then just releasing them somewhere else so they wouldn't eat my apricots, right? And I caught a rat one day in the trap, and I couldn't kill the rat. I took him to a skate park in North Hollywood and let him go. Because I was like, I remember this little kid, like I had a BB gun at one point, and I think I shot a bird, and the bird kind of died, and I still like so vivid. I sobbed. I sobbed. I couldn't believe I had killed this bird.
I had the same experience.
I'm so like that. And so when I talk to my friends who are huge hunters or something, they're like, you're a pussy. And I go, I guess I am. I really am. I like musicals, and I don't love killing things. So I don't know.
Maybe you're not German.
Maybe I'm not. Maybe that's the Irish in me. I don't know.
Is that your definition for a pussy? Is that you like musicals and you can't kill things? That's it. That's it right there.
I like back rubs. I like foot massage.
Pussy.
I used to when I bounced for a while, and that was my trick. You know, like bouncers, like they'd always go like, you got into a fight, and the guy was like, well, you called me a pussy, and I would, when I was working the door, I would have to throw some guy who goes, you're a fucking pussy. And I'd be like, you know it, my brother. I am the biggest pussy on earth. And he'd be like, what? And I'd be like, oh, you wouldn't believe it, dude. I'm in a pussy competition in Columbus, Ohio. I go every year. I finished third last year. On earth. I'm pretty sure this year I'm going to go. Like, I would just riff about I would just go along with them. And then they'd be like, oh, all right, man. All right, you're a pussy. And I go, yeah, let's move on. And then I never got into one fight bouncing. I never got into one fight.
Oh, man. Good for you.
I guess. All right. Hey, let's talk. John, you want to hang for a second?
Yeah, I'll hang until I get interrupted. How about that?
Sounds good.
Please. That should be the name of the show. We're here until
we're interrupted.
Yeah, honestly, that's the new name of the show, I believe.
Buddy
John Nixon's here. He's got little kids, and every time I see him, I go, "Oh, you're still here. I thought you would have faked your own death and headed to the South Pacific by now."
I mean, I probably head to England first, obviously. Football's
Never
there.
tell them where you're going.
That's the key.
Well, I mean, it's a big place, and they're not going to find me.
Now this is evidence, brother.
What was that?
Now this is going to be used in a court of law against you one day for child support. Talk about your dad, John. Was he a good guy? Did you get along? Do you wish you could go back in time and be a nicer kid to him like I do?
On occasion, I do. My dad was a good guy. He did well for us. He was an Air Force pilot, so like y'all's, he did C-141s. He did cargo route, so he'd fly to Germany and Japan, and out of all those trips, I think the best thing I recall out of all that was he would always bring back interesting things. So we had this pachinko machine that he got from Japan, and man, I had never seen anything as cool as that in my life when he brought that home. Just a weird little Japanese pinball, and we spent hours every day. I think we broke it 100 times, and he had to fix it every time. But I remember a lot of that stuff bouncing around from Air Force Base to Air Force Base, bit of travel. I think I want to say it was in Oklahoma. Yeah, I remember this. This is good. So I realized the truths about Santa in Oklahoma when I found everything for our Christmas 2 days before Christmas in his office. He didn't bother to tell us not to go snooping or anything. And I was just bored, walked in there, and I saw everything I was getting for Christmas, and I saw everything my sister was getting for Christmas, and I said nothing, because when I saw it, and I saw it on Christmas Day, I was like, huh, that's interesting. Santa came early, and then I put it together, and I never said anything about it until 4 or 5 years later when he was sitting me and my sister down to explain the truths of it, and I was like, yeah, I knew since 1984 when I saw my He-Man Masters of the Universe castle and all this other stuff in here. So not quite as shocked. He's like, why didn't you tell us before now? I was like, because I still want to get free shit from Santa. I'm not gonna sell myself out. Come on.
That's smart.
That is smart.
That is smart, dude. There's that thing about I milk it as long as you can, right?
Yeah.
Did any of you guys ever get into a physical altercation with your dad?
I never did. He always used to, whenever we had verbal spats, he always would say to me, if you ever feel froggy, go ahead and leap. But I never took that leap. That's
a t-shirt, by the way. That should be in our t-shirt. That's
Hang on, that was a threat he made to you?
Yeah, it feels like
it was a little threatening. I guess in retrospect, yeah.
That's a tough. Jamie, you should have said that at the door.
Listen, pussy. All I'm saying is, if you're feeling a little froggy, I want you to The leap. Better with the head gyration. You take a leap. You want a leap, Froggy? Ribbit? Huh? Ribbit? No. You would just see
Maybe.
right in the face. I would get smashed in the face.
That would have been me if I ever took the leap. I would have been like, ribbit, ribbit, bitch, and then he would have dropped me like right then and there.
Lachlan, never. You said your dad was pretty tough. Was there ever? I mean, I remember being 16 and getting into like a physical, like pushing match with my dad. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, I was that guy who was like, dad's, dad was grooming me to be him kind of, so I kind of just fell in line with my dad. He, I really didn't know much other than what he had taught me until and when I tried to do my own thing, I felt like he's like, well, like, it's not what I want. So you're on your own. And,
did he just put you on a raft and push you off because you were in a cabin by the water? He just put you on a raft and push you out and go like you're on your own in comedy?
Yeah, he wasn't really into comedy. He wanted me to be like a plumber or an electrician or something like that, or because they came from, their parents were in the Depression, and so they learned you got to have a security and a plan B and something to fall back on. And I came from a generation that's like, I'm gonna fall back on you. I'm falling back on you guys. You guys have a house.
Mine's so similar. Yeah. Did he? I mean, was there reconciled at any point where he came? Did he come to shows and go, "Oh my gosh, you're really funny"? Like this is, yeah. You kind of followed the right path.
Tonight Show. Once he saw me on the Tonight Show, he started telling all his friends. My mom was like, the whole island knows about you. My dad, your dad has told everybody. And he's fine with it now. He comes to my shows. He laughs. He still gives me advice though. But his advice is from a place of absolutely no experience at all. So it's annoying a bit. Like I'll get off stage and he'll be like, you're drinking too much water up there. So I love him, but I
did say, honestly, I saw your set. I thought the same thing of like, boy, he goes to that water a lot. It felt egregious the amount of water you took in. I was like, he's only up there for 45. Is he afraid he's not going to make it through the night?
I watched his special. Too much water drinking.
Was he funny? Hilariously funny, but the water took me out of it. I couldn't get past the water intake.
So yeah, he's got weird advice. Never fought him. He taught me how to fight. Kick him in the balls, Lockie. Kick him in the balls. He'll drop him in a second. Kick him in the balls.
So he fought. He fought. He was a fair fighter.
He fought so dirty. Oh my God! But his dad drank and drove and crashed and died, and killed people. And it was just back then. It was just called a bad day, like unlucky. They didn't even have drinking and driving laws back then. It was just he's having an unlucky day, I guess.
That was your grandfather?
Yeah. Like I don't think they even.
How old was your dad when that happened?
He was like, I think he was like 20. I'm hoping he was like 20. But I think I probably made him feel not secure. That was the income. And that's why when I said, I'm going to be an artist, he's like, I can't even handle this. I spent from 20 on with a single mom trying to raise, I didn't have anything. So he became like a door-to-door salesman and shit.
Dude, I think this generation is going to be the total opposite because I was the same. My dad begged me to stay in the Navy. He was like, just do 20, get the pension. And I was like, I'm getting out to become an actor. And he was like, not going to talk to me ever again. He was so upset. And I think this generation, especially since the pandemic, people are like, you get one life, man. You got to follow your dream. In 20 years, there's going to be a lot of people whose dreams didn't pan out, and they're going to need some serious help because they're going to have no other skills on earth. Because they're parents, go ahead.
I was going to say it's going to evolve to the point where like you don't want to be an artist. No son of mine is going to get a regular job with a pension. You're going to be
a plumber. You're not coming back in this house.
You're going to get a live stream
or painting or sculpting. We gotta see something artistic. Have you written a musical yet this week? No, then you're out.
Totally.
That's funny. That'd be a really funny sketch of like
My kid's gonna be an influencer.
I've already started his YouTube channel. He's 6 months old. He's blowing up.
It's coming, man.
His sub list is huge. John, what about you? Did you and your dad ever get into it?
So me and my dad, we never directly fought. I think as close as we got, we took Taekwondo for a few years, and I think that he enjoyed the sessions where they just basically let you partner up with whomever. And he would always like to just take on me and my sister and try to sweep the leg Johnny and not feel bad. I mean, we had pads, but it was still he still gave full force kicking.
Nice.
Being an 80s kid, it was a lot different for us back then than it is now. So I think one of the worst things I had from my childhood was there was a time that we were doing the door-to-door sales thing that you do in whatever grade for your school. And I had just gone out for about 3 or 4 hours and doing some really good business. And my aunt lived probably 2/3 of a mile, 3/4 of a mile from our house. It was a long walk, but we walked over there and we knocked, and we asked her if she wanted to do anything or she wanted to buy anything. She was like, "Yeah, sure, sweetie, I'll buy everything you have." And then as soon as we left, she called my mom and dad, who were apparently terrified because they didn't know where we were. And they picked us up, and as soon as we got home, we got the go in the front yard, pick your switch.
Oh, I've heard of that. I've never actually known that.
Richard Pryor would talk about it. My parents never. My mother just hit me with yardsticks, and we
were
black leather belt.
My father never hit me once ever.
Got the belt a lot. We did not get the switch a lot. That was basically when we were missing for 3 hours and caused both parents to have heart palpitations. That's when we would have to pick switch. And again, this is not something I'll ever do to my boys, but it's one of those things that when you get in that much trouble, you realize that you don't ever need to go away from your parents for 3 hours or even 30 minutes without checking on. I mean, that was probably.
I do think we've gone the opposite way, though. I mean, the other day I yelled at my kids. I melted down, and they were afraid of me. And everyone, like, it was honestly like in the neighborhood, like everyone kind of knew what was going down. And I was like, you know what? They should be afraid of me a little bit, because otherwise they run. They just run with me. And there's nothing to stop them.
It is such a difficult line to ride, because like I do respect the people that do gentle parenting. I do. I have way too much trauma in my life and just harsh experience that, like, I look at those people and I envy their situation where they can do that, because like every second of my life is just getting rid of rage any way that I can. I try to do that with humor, but like the problem is my boys are funnier than I am, so I can't even do that.
I mean, I've never hurt them,
no.
But they've seen me melt the F down, and I could see them just melting into the wall, and I was like, good, yeah. You should be afraid, because I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't, like, there has to be that crazy, it's like when you get a new job, you fire one person, right? So that everyone knows.
Set the example.
They can be fired. Like, there has to be this inherent fear. Like, luckily they're in Catholic school, so the fear of God is a little bit, but kids today need fear, because they're gonna get out in the real world and get punched in the face really quick, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for them to have fear, but it's also like it's good to get them through it. Like Sully and his fears right now, his fears are just ridiculous. He's afraid of water. Like he had bad ear infections as a kid, so his ears caused him a serious amount of pain. So I mean, we had to work through that, and we're just trying to get him to where he can enjoy the pool. He still won't swim on his own. He won't go underwater, but like we've gotten him to where like he won't scream and freak out if he gets water splashed in his eyes. I mean, that's as far as we've gotten, and it's all baby steps. Like, we've gotten him to jump into the pool with his little his life preserver on. So I mean, it's all steps, but like I'm cool with them having fears as long as he figures out how to get over them. I don't want him to be afraid of irrational shit like swimming. I mean, he should save that for like clowns and poodles. Those are totally normal things to be terrified of.
Poodles?
What about you, Lachlan? Because you're such a water baby.
Yeah, my kid's. How old's your kid?
Oh, mine?
Yeah.
He's 6 next Saturday, and my youngest turned 2 back in March.
Yeah.
Your
My kids
youngest
are like dolphins.
Yeah, my kid's 2. He's afraid of the water still. Like he'll go in the water, but he does not put his face under it.
Did you do ISR? We did ISR at 1 year. Do you know that infant swim and rescue? They don't they don't teach the kid to swim. You know what they teach? That when the body falls into the water, to hold your breath, not let your air out, and then to wait till your body floats to the surface. Have you not seen the videos that I posted years ago?
Me? No.
1 year. So Hannah, I took her every day for 10 minutes a day for a month. And they literally taught her, and she screamed, "Daddy, please, Daddy, please." And I was having a panic attack, but they're fish. So they taught the kid to become because that's the problem. They fall in the water and they let all their air out and they don't know how to swim. So they go right to the bottom. What it teaches them is to, when they hit the water, to hold their breath and then they wait and the body floats to the surface. And so to pass the test at 1 year of age, my daughter, in all of her clothes and her shoes, got thrown in the pool, flipped around, splashed, and had to float on her own for 3 minutes.
Okay.
Look
I'm
up
watching your video.
Some people gave me grief and said, this is child abuse. And we have a pool and I was so terrified. I would have panic attacks about the kids drowning in the pool that we did ISR. And it was, I'm so glad we did now, but she threw up in the woman's pool every day. She had to skim out her vomit and stuff. But
what?
It's crazy.
Oh, man.
You got to teach them to swim early because at that age, they take to it. It's like a language. You can learn everything you can learn when you're young. Yeah. Even at 2, you should do ISR and teach them how to swim. Hey, let's go ahead, Lachlan.
I was just saying, summer's here. He's got to learn. That's
Especially
it.
you. You're such a big surfer, right?
Yeah, and I don't push him to it, but it would be really cool to get him, on a board and getting up with me and going out and hunting waves.
Isn't it weird sometimes you want your kid to do, I wanted my kids to play soccer so badly. And it was the one sport they're like, nah, I'm not doing it. I was like, dude, really? You want them to be with you. My father wanted me to love the stars. And he'd be like, I'll tell you about the constellations. I'm like, I'm going in to watch MASH or it's something stupid. And then he just didn't. He was so angry. Yeah. I just didn't want to do what he wanted to do when I was a kid. And it's really sometimes so with soccer, I kind of played it off. And all of my daughter's friends were on a soccer team. And then she came home from school and she's like, hey, you didn't sign me up for soccer. I go, yeah, you didn't really express any interest in it. And then she goes, well, I would like to play. And I go, we'll see. And then I slow played it. And now she loves soccer. So you're going to have to kind of.
Thank you. I'll keep it's got psychology to it for sure.
A little reverse psychology. Listen, I'm going to write a parenting book eventually. It's coming. All right, let's bring in another dad. Do you want to hang or you guys need to go? I don't want to hold you guys up.
I'm good.
If we got room.
Yeah, plenty. We'll keep it going. So, again, Jason brings in people before I get to introduce them. We'll work on that again. Every show, literally, he brings in the person before I introduce them. My buddy, one of my favorite comics, he's a acclaimed author. Never mind. Stevie D, how are you, brother? Hey, turn your camera sideways, man. Turn your camera sideways.
How's that?
There you go.
So I couldn't help but see that you wrote, I shot my kids with a BB gun a couple of days ago.
True story. That's a true story. Don't call the authorities.
I'm not calling it. But how and why?
Do you see this trampoline?
Yeah.
So we're about 3 days into summer break here, and the kids come out to bounce. And within 90 seconds, they're fighting. I got a daughter and a son, 12 and 11 now. So it's daddy, stop. Colin's got me in a headlock. So I finally had enough. I pulled out the Red Ryder, and I opened the sliding glass door, and I said, you know, unfortunately, you can't beat your kids like my mom used to beat me with the switch. I said, but I've never read you can't shoot your kids with a BB gun. Scaring the shit out of them. And my daughter took off. My son was getting out, kind of taking his time, putting his slides on, and I hit right next to him, ricocheted, and his eyes were like, he's not fucking around. I wasn't really trying to hit him. But it worked.
Stevie D.
I just got to say that, like, I was just going to say that I think the most terrifying thing I can think of as a kid is seeing my dad in a Johnny Cash shirt with the sleeves cut off, walking out with some form of, in my mind, artillery, and they're shooting at me. That's just got to be.
Oh my God.
Well, Stevie D's got a fantastic book. Stevie D's got a book called The Trans Am Diaries, and I asked him tonight because who is that? Who needs to be muted? John.
I'll mute myself and see if it's me.
I think
it could be me, guys. I'm in the backyard.
It's probably Stevie.
Stevie, you got a terrible connection, brother. Before you come on and start telling some food.
Try to go inside and hide.
Yeah, go check out and then come back in. Because we want to hear about your dad trying to evade the police while you were in the car, which is a true story.
I'm gonna go get the BB gun. I'll be right back.
All right, go click out. We'll see you.
Yeah, it was him. Yeah, it was him.
He has a story about. I won't blow it, but his father was running from the police while he was a little boy in the front seat. It's like the craziest. It's such a good story.
Like OJ style?
Yes, he was in the car with his dad, OJ style. He was AC Cowling, except he wasn't driving.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife's texting me my wife's like texting me about insurance. She knows I'm doing a show, by the way.
Life insurance?
I'm doing a show, and she's like, hey, I'm checking on the insurance for the kids and stuff. Is this all up to date? I'm like, I told you what I was doing. She's like, no. Yeah, she didn't care. What if you could go back in time, what would you do differently with your relationship with your father? Anything?
I mean, if I've got the same perspective as now, I'd probably try to be a little bit less of a dick, because, you know, seeing how my boys act with me on any given day, it's just incredibly stressful. Like this morning, trying to do phone calls with this whole, you know, pandemic environment and trying to work through things and, you know, help folk. And, you know, my youngest boy is just sitting here being oblivious to, you know, the obnoxiousness that he is. Like it was a lot of stress on me. And I think that, you know, I never really had that visual for my dad, and sometimes the stress. Now, sometimes he kind of deserved it, because, you know, being that I'm half him, he's kind of a jerk, so he deserves some of it, but I don't think he necessarily deserved all of it.
Yeah, I mean, if I could go back, it's like it's so funny that, because I was never going to have kids, and then all of a sudden in like my late 40s, I was like, yeah, sure, let's take a shot at it. And then all of a sudden you get the wake-up call of like, oh yeah, I mean, you know, here we are. Every dad says the same thing. I love it. I wouldn't change a thing. Oh, I would change a couple things. I would change a few things that I have done before there and stuff. I love my kids, but like, I think at the end of the day, all of us are doing everything we can to get through this. But am I lying when I say this is the most difficult thing we've ever gone through in our lives?
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's like, no,
it's not even a question.
Oh, not even a question. Thank you, Jason. I was saying I agree. I pay somebody to be away from my child for 5 hours of the day. Like, that's insane. Like, would you do that for anyone else in your life? Would you say just like, how much to just get rid of my wife for like 5 hours? And but with your kids, you just, because you need it. They're just very challenging, and it's like a job. If I'm being honest, it's like a job. The greatest job ever, right, guys?
No, it's the worst.
Greatest job.
Because here's the problem: it's honestly payback, because they're not thankful. They still boss me around. Give me a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Hey, dude, you don't talk to me like that. What are you talking about? I'm not your butler. That's what they started quoting me. Like, when my kids are older, that's what they're going to say. Like, what was your father like? He always said, I'm not your butler. Like, that's all I ever say to those maniacs.
We were at Target, and my oldest, like, seemed to think that in some way he was deserving and entitled to a toy because he simply did not cause a problem at the store. And so, like, by just towing the line at status quo, he deserved some sort of reward. And I was like, that is not how this is going to go.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson.
My oldest didn't shit in the bed, so he thought that was enough for him to be able to take his laptop to summer camp today. So yeah, they just take the most ridiculous thing. Like, if I yell at him for whatever he's doing, making noise, knocking over something on my desk or anything else, he'll just be like, well, I didn't poop and pee in your bed. It's like, yeah, because you know how that works. I'm not gonna reward you for knowing how to, like, breathe. Your reward is you get to live.
You couldn't use that excuse. You couldn't just walk into your job and be like, hey, can I get a raise? Why? Oh, I didn't shit in the fucking, I didn't shit on the toilet seat.
You remember that person that was rude to me? I didn't tell them that, they can just fuck off into the sun. So pay me more.
The other thing is, it's like, they always say, I want my kids to have a better life than I did, right? Like, that was the big thing of, like, my parents were like, I want you to do better than I did and stuff. But eventually that is unsustainable. At some point, somebody, like, I honestly, I don't know if my kids are going to have a better life than me. I've had a good run up until I had kids. Before that, it was fantastic and glorious time. So when it's like, are my kids going to have a better life than me? I don't know if that's possible. Eventually, someone has to reset the bar and just have an absolute shitty life, and then have their kids have a better life and keep moving up. Is that crazy?
Not really. I think I've set the bar low enough for my boys. When I was little, for career day, like, everybody was like, I want to be an astronaut or president or whatever. I wanted to be a pizza boy. And when I turned 18, I became a pizza delivery driver, and I did that for like 4 or 5 years. And I made good money, but I wasted, a lot of time doing all that and other crap. So now, like, when my boys come of age, it's like, okay, well, if you don't go to college, then just do something better than pizza, and you've outpaced me.
Have you seen those posts online where it's like, it shows like an electrician and a kid in college, and it's like the electrician's like zero in debt, makes $85 an hour, and then the college kid's like $500,000 in debt, living with his parents. It's like, who's the smart one? Are we back at the point where the kids, we kind of were in that era of, like, we could just go get a history degree from some shitty school just so we could party for 4 years before we started our life? Mm-hmm. Where now our kids are, like, not going to waste their time doing that. They're going to just go and start their careers in influencing.
It does feel like we've cycled back some.
I blame Ryan, honestly.
Wait, what?
Ryan, the little kid that has the YouTube show and is a millionaire because he plays with toys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For the unboxer, he's the unboxer. He made $24 million last year.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're salty about that at all, Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I love that you knew his exact income, like you knew it like to a T.
He made $24 million last year. His family did. I mean, to his credit, his family filmed him all day, every day and stuff. So, all right, let's bring in another buddy of mine. This is my buddy from My Boys. You would know him from this show Superstore as well. Very funny guy. We had toured before together. We toured as the Gentlemen of My Boys. We did a USO tour together. One of my best friends on earth and a funny cat from Vegas. Please welcome Michael Bunin.
Hey, that was a very nice introduction. Thanks, man.
Hey, I worked on it really hard. I'm going to re-ice.
I'm going to grab a beer.
Yeah, Lachlan's grabbing a beer. We're telling some dad stories, and I asked you in here because not only are you ridiculously funny, but your dad is an awesome cat who had some great words of wisdom. And I thought we're kind of the whole part of the show is to pay homage to our dads.
Yeah.
To go, thank you for the reason we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my dad, as you know, was sort of a good dichotomy of, like when he was a teenager working as a busboy in a restaurant. The end of the night when tips came around, the waiters were just too big and they were older and they pushed him around. He never got any tips. So he saved up dimes until he had a roll of dimes. And then the next night he went in after weeks of saving up and he beat the ever living shit out of that waiter. And then he always got his tips after that, But then that's the same guy that grew up and then did go to William and Mary and was a very successful businessman in a lot of times in his life. But, so he had a nice mix. Like my dad always had like tasks for me, and so he'd always be like, hey, what are you doing? Which, I mean, it wouldn't matter what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like I could literally be like, open heart surgery. Would just get in the car with me for just a minute. Put that down for a second. I mean, like it wouldn't matter anything I'm going to say. But so he's like, yeah, get in the car. Take me. I got to go for a ride somewhere. I was like, okay. So I get in the car. I'm driving him. He's like, we pull up to the bank. He's like, here, run in and make a deposit for me. I'm like, all right. So I go to the guy. It just doesn't add up in my head. I go to the counter and the woman's very nice. She says, hi. I said, hi, how are you? She goes, oh, good. I said, just make a deposit. And she goes, okay, Mr. Bunin. And I go, yeah. And she goes, is this your dad? And I go, yeah. And she goes, mm-hmm. And she just kind of does her thing. And so I go like, Dad, why do they hate me now in the bank? He's like, I was hoping they wouldn't recognize the name. I was in here 2 days ago and it was a long line and my stomach was bugging me and I just didn't want to wait in the line. And the woman at the merchant counter, she recognized me and she goes, just come on over here. So I go over and some guy in the back of the line is like, hey, buddy, line starts over here, and I just I waved him off, just leave me alone. He says, hey, I'm talking to you. And my father, I turned to the guy and I was like, hey, just shut the fuck up and be thankful that I didn't come over there and make you shut up. And so he says, I go back, I just want to do this. And the guy starts walking towards me. And, he looks to be, about 10 years older than me. And he says, what are you going to do? And I said, look, old man, just calm down. And the guy says, old man, I'm 51. How old are you? And my dad's like, it turns out I'm like 8 years older than him. I said, right. He said, what am I going to do? He said, as soon as he stepped in, he's like, boom. I hit him with a hook. His nose just pops. And so do the dimes in my hand. They just shoot out of my hand. And as he's falling down, I miss the right hand, but he's out cold anyways. Security guard comes running up to me. I'm telling the security guard, all right, you're not going to want to put your hands on me. Just listen. I'm going to tell you, just listen to what I'm telling you. The guy says, I got to call the cops. I go, yeah, call him. I want to press charges. He attacked me. He said, the young guard looks at me and he says, why do you have so many dimes? And I said, I make a lot of fucking phone calls. What do you care? I was like, Dad, no, it hasn't been a dime to make a phone call in 40 years. But it's a good response. And you know what the sad thing is? He looks at me at the end of the story. He says, you know what really bugs me about that? And I thought, oh, here we go. He's going to reflect on the moment. It was a little ridiculous. He says, you know what really bugs me about it? I said, what? He goes, 20 years ago, I never missed the right hand on the way down. I was like,
your dad was a boxer when he was a young guy, right?
Yeah. Just amateur. He had about 50 amateur fights.
But those are the scariest guys to fight.
They are.
That's why I never start a fight with people because you're always like, you have no idea who that dude is, and you're going to pick a fight with someone blindly?
No.
Crazy to me.
Everybody nowadays is wearing shirts that say tap out. When I see somebody in a tap out shirt, I just think it's safe to assume they can tap me out. So whatever they want, I just get out of their way. I figure if you're advertising it, that must be true. I'm just going to stay out of the way.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. It's like if you see a barbed wire tattoo, all right, listen, that dude obviously doesn't care what he looks like. So he doesn't care if he gets hurt. So I can't fight.
That's right. That's right.
That's it.
That's exactly right.
So it's funny too, because before I met you, I never knew anybody who was from Vegas. And it's funny because we did the show, for those of you who don't know, we did My Boys together. And Mike was like, when we played pool, you crushed me. When we bowled, you killed, like every little card game we played poker, you destroyed us. I was like, and then you're like, oh, I'm from Vegas. And I was like, oh, it's all starting to fall into place now. But your dad was kind of that guy too, right? I mean, you kind of fell into the family trade in a way.
You know, my dad was like, I'm the youngest of 3 boys, and so they were a little less strict with me. And as long as my grades were good, he didn't care that I was in the pool hall. So yes, like, you know, from the age of 15 to 22, I was in a pool hall 5 days a week. And then some of those, as I turned 18 and 19 and learned how to play poker, so it would be pool hall early evening, poker mid to late evening, and then come back by the pool hall to see if there were any fish left. And if there weren't, grab a bite to eat and go home.
That was like your high school years.
And college.
And college, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, there were.
You have a lot of stories from Vegas, dude. Whether it's Wayne Newton or Mike Tyson or like Insanity coming up. Talk about your dad a little bit, because I know also you lived in Virginia Beach for a little while.
Well, yeah. So I was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and I lived in Virginia Beach till I was 12. And then my dad, my dad and my mom used to go to Vegas once, twice a year when we were young. And there was always jokes that we might move there. And then just one day it was like, all right, we're moving to Las Vegas. It's like, okay. So, it's a big change to go from, green in Virginia to the desert in Vegas. And then it's just, it's a whole different lifestyle. You go from, there's ABC stores in Virginia. You can't buy booze on certain days. In Vegas, it's 24/7. What do you want? What time is it? You want to go bowling? You can do that. You want lobster tail? You can do that. Whatever time of day it is, it doesn't matter. You can get it done. So it's a big life change. And my father's business was one of gaming. He was he had a sports service. So a sports service is to a gambler what a stockbroker is to somebody that wants to invest. And so that's what my father did for many years. And so Vegas was the right place to be. But in Vegas, what you do in Vegas is legal, but a lot of the people that did it originally, they did it, in another city where it wasn't legal. So it was an interesting, you had interesting business partners coming by all the time. Big scary guys like, Bruno's going to come by and give you a bag, just put it in the trunk. Okay.
But your dad definitely had that fighter's mentality. Did you and he ever kind of go at it, or were you always like, yeah, Dad, whatever you say?
No, man. Like my brother Joe argued with him a couple of times. Maybe my brother Dan did a little bit. Me, no, man, no. Once he said it, I was just like, so that's the law of the land, then, right? Okay, got it. You don't have to tell me more than once. No. Because I remember one time, like my dad they were looking for my brother, and I knew he was off with some girl that my mom didn't like. And so I was like, I don't know where he is. And I was like, you don't know where he is? I was like, no, I don't know where he is. And my dad comes in the kitchen, he goes, you don't know where he is? I said, no. He goes, okay, no problem. I said, great. He goes, tell you what, why don't you sit down at the kitchen table until you remember where he is? And then he just left the room. I sat there for about 5 minutes. I was like, yeah, he's with Sandy. He's like, okay, good. I was like, I fucking, Dan, I ran you out so fast. I was like, I couldn't move. What was I going to do? He set the rule.
Dude, it's like the Hanoi Hilton guys would, what's the point? You're going to break. Why wait 12 hours? Why get tortured for 2 weeks? Dude, if they, like when I was in the Navy, I'd go, listen, I don't know what to tell you guys. Don't tell me anything. Because it's going to take like 30 seconds. The first time they ask, they're going to show like a drill and some lemon juice. And I'm going to go, oh, guys, no. Give me some paper. Let me write some stuff down. Let me show you what's happening here. Here's where they are. Here's what don't worry about it. I can help. If you want me to come up, I'll do whatever you guys want, because I don't need to get pummeled with a phone book. So it's all. That's why when people go, I can't believe you don't remember my name. I'm always like, dude, that was my training from the Navy. I just try not to remember anything because I didn't want to tell. Because the second they captured me, I would have been like, oh, here you go. I brought some photos. Here's a map. Here's the whole shit. I don't know what to tell you, brother. They're going to be here on this day. Have fun. Yeah, terrible. I love the story with your dad. Your dad, something about the neighbors right through the screen door, something.
Yeah, well, like, my dad, we liked a lot of the neighbors, but a lot of the neighbors that we didn't like, my dad ended up beating up somebody in their household at some point in time. Like our neighbor next door, my dad had just had enough, and he went and he rang the doorbell, and as the guy opened the door, he just hit him right through the screen door, and the whole thing came toppling down. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that. On top of him, And my uncle, his brother, was like, "Jesus, Phil, you're gonna kill the guy. Get off him."
Did anybody press charges? The cops never showed up and said, "Hey, you can't just beat the crap out of people."
Or at least make them fix the screen door.
Yeah, I mean, nobody. Yes, exactly, Jason.
Right.
I mean, you gotta come on, dude.
Here's what I would say about that
At
particular
least the door.
about that particular situation. The guy deserved to be punched in the face. I don't know that he deserved to have his screen door planted on top of him with my father standing on him, hitting him repeatedly. I think one punch was actually deserved. I think the rest was, hyperbole at best. But anyways,
Did you become violent?
Cops would come by, sure, but in Virginia in like 1978, I mean, most of those cops were just being paid off anyway. So I mean, like they came by, but like you kind of just knew they weren't going to really arrest anybody.
Wow.
If that makes sense, I don't know.
No, it makes sense for sure.
I do think back in that era, like it was like, what happened? Oh, there was a fight. It happens. There's a fight. Nowadays, it would be videotaped. That would be up. There would be charges pressed. People would be like, lives would be changed, ruined.
Yeah.
This is over. Someone would have to publicly apologize. Back in the day, like, what happened? He mouthed off. He got his ass kicked. And it was like, oh, well, he probably had it coming. It was just a time.
I can tell you that in Norfolk, Virginia, my dad and my Uncle Bill, his brother-in-law, and those guys, they all had many a poker game that was illegal in many a different restaurant. And at some point in time, cops would come, and if they would get in arguments, and my father and his friend Marvin Hirschfield were famous for, they would get in arguments with cops, and then they would finally say to them, look, meet us at the park when you get off your shift, put your gun and badge in the trunk, and we'll figure it out. And a lot of times the cops would show up, and they were famous for going to the park late at night in their early 20s and fighting cops about twice a month.
What? I would love someone to film that.
How is that a movie?
Holy shit. Leave your gun and badge in the car, did you say?
Yeah, put your gun and badge. They would make them put the gun and badge in the trunk.
Well, here's what's funny, Mike. It's Stevie D who's commenting on this. It's the same thing. Logan Paul just made like $20 million to do a little dance session with Floyd Mayweather. I would pay to see that pay-per-view. That would be amazing to see that.
Not to mention take a short nap.
Cop fights? Cop fights, like off-duty cop fights is a whole stream. Like I would click on that all night.
I still think back to when I think it was back in the 90s they did that whole bum fights. Like
Exactly right. Yeah.
This has more animosity in it, though. There's more. The nation would heal off this, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
yes. You could bet on it.
You could replace UFC with it. Just run drink specials. Oh yeah.
I think we're going back that way because if you put bum fights up now, people would be like, dude, so not cool, so politically correct.
You would get canceled instantly.
Yeah.
Match wouldn't even get made.
Like two people that are starving, like, hey, here's the deal. You can go another day of starving, or you guys can beat the crap out of each other. I think, unfortunately, that's the problem with doing bum fights, Jamie.
I was in Philadelphia one time, and these guys who, there were what appeared to be homeless guys. This one comes up to us, my buddies and I were out drinking, and they said, how would you guys each like to pay $25 to come down in this alley and beat the shit out of these guys? And like, you look down in the alley and there were so many, I'm like, we go down the alley, we're not coming back out. So it was, but they were trying to get us to come down the alley to pay money to fight bums ourselves.
No,
I've seen that.
No.
There's a bum that I used to actually bounce like Jamie did, and bums would come by all the time and say, $10, give me $10 and you can kick me. Just kick me as hard as you want. And they would go down on the street and do this to whoever they could and make money getting their asses kicked.
But they never fought back. They just
kick my ass. Kick me for $10. There's $30. Beat the shit out of me. Go for it.
It sets the visual. You're not to be messed with.
Did you see people who did pay and beat the crap out of them?
No, I never did. I always just said, please, I can't even. I don't even want to know that this exists. It's like smut.
Exactly.
You know, it's like
I'm just wondering
video.
what kind of person goes, oh, thank God you came to offer. Honestly, I was going out tonight. I was going to beat the shit out of somebody, but honestly, for $30, this seems way more economical than going. So, to be clear, for $30, I can beat the sweet Jesus out of you. Like, what kind of person has a mentality? You know, when I did,
I don't know.
When I worked at the Irish pub for years, like, it's not my jam, but there is a whole section of society that, and it's mostly English guys, and they go out, and if they don't get into a fight, it's not a good night. Like, that's on the agenda of like, oh, what are you doing tonight? Oh, we're gonna go drink, and then we're getting into a fight. And like, what fight? Oh, we don't know yet, but it's coming, and we're gonna get into it. Like, that's part of the.
That's what Las Vegas was like, late '80s, early '90s. When I bartended a lot, and like the bar scene back then was not, not every hotel had a nightclub. It wasn't like that now. So it was just X amount of bars. And it was, on Thursdays, you were usually good for 1 or 2 scuffles. Fridays, definitely a fight. Saturday could be 2 or 3 fights every weekend. And it was every bar like that. You just knew it. You'd be bartending and, you get that tension in the air, Like you can feel the vibration of a train coming. You'd be like, "Oh man, oh it's coming, What
do you do as a bartender when that starts? Like, what did you do?
Most of the bars that I worked in had a door staff. So as a general rule, they didn't want us to do anything, and all 153 pounds of me were thrilled about that. However, there were lots of nights where I worked midnight to 8 in the morning alone at one bar called the Sports Pub. And so, unfortunately, yes, it was me that had to come out and break up a lot of fights a lot of those times. And if it just got too messy, I just called the cops immediately. I just, I'm not, like if I looked over and saw somebody get hit in the head with a pool ball like that a couple of times, I'd seen that. I was like, no, I'm not coming out for that.
That's so funny, dude.
That's
I jumped bar. I would always jump the bar, and I'd get the guy from behind and put him into a half Nelson. I'd pull his arms up behind and put my hands, and then I would just kind of stumble him out, and everyone would move us outside and get him out. That's how I did it.
That's the same move I did, the half Nelson. That was my move.
Yeah.
One arm up and through, and then I grab the other arm and just kind of tuck it right here, and I grab his hair, under and hair.
And right? Look at that. Down. If you get up under the arms and then you push the head down, the guy's incapacitated. I know. Hey, listen, we have another little celeb who's going to come in. Everyone good to hang for a few minutes? We have one more guy, my buddy. You know him from Reno 911. Fantastic stand-up. You'll know him from every single cartoon that's ever been made on television. Our pal, he's a regular here, Mr. Carlos Alasraki.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, man. Hey, Dad.
My backyard next to my, my above ground swimming pool with patches on it.
Flip your phone sideways.
There we go. Does that work better?
Yeah. Even better. How are you, Carlos?
I'm good. I'm drinking I just had a Popeye spicy chicken sandwich following my girls softball game. And this is a Glenmorangie 12. It's a Space side. It's nice and sweet because I didn't want to go with the smoky peaty stuff after having a fiery. What do you got there? Bonahaben? Bonahaben. There you go. That's a nicely mildly peated Islay whiskey you got there. So I didn't want to go. I'm not going smoke tonight because I had the spicy chicken sandwich. So, yeah.
Totally get it.
And her drinks.
Hey, we're paying a little homage to our dads tonight, my brother. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your dad.
My dad from Argentina, a place called Loma. He actually played rugby in high school, and he went to British schools. So from the time he was in kindergarten all through high school, he went to a place called St. Albans. So before 12 o'clock, he got to speak Spanish, but from 12 o'clock on, you had to speak English. And I went and visited his school in 2010 in Argentina, and it's a total Hogwarts. They even had a double-decker red British bus, and the Vibars were the headmasters there. And I asked the Vibars, John Vibar was the headmaster, and I said, "Oh yes, your father. He was a good old boy." And I said, "Well, how was he? Was he a good student?" He goes, "Yes, rather a good student, never had to give him 6 of the best, which in those days, I don't know if you know what that means. That meant 6 paddle strokes. So if you were bad, you were given 6 of the best. 1, 2, 3. So apparently that's where my dad came from, along with my mom. But my dad, taught me how to play racquetball, taught me how to play tennis, was always a good athlete. And unfortunately, I think he's given it up too early in life to be active. But pretty mellow guy, British educated. So he turned us on to Monty Python on KQED. He was a librarian who's taught me, who was always watching my words. And I get because of my father, every time I watch a sportscaster go, oh, that ball bounced off of. Nope, there's no such thing as off of. My dad's a librarian. You don't say on of, so why are you saying off of? The Rolling Stones got it wrong. Hey, you get off of my cloud. They're fucking stone, that's why. They don't know the difference. So, get off of me. Like, I would even say it properly when my brother was, like, grabbing my ears. I'd go, get off me. I wouldn't add the extra preposition because of my dad's influence. But he's a pretty mellow guy. My mom's fire. Here's the joke in my family, right? My dad was British educated. My mom, no. My mom was pretty much, I was raised by Charo and Gandhi. Dad was very mellow, but he, good athlete, rugby player, tennis player, racquetball player. Told me the fine art of dinking the ball in racquetball when people were always trying to smash it. And, just a good dad, man. And I'm going to see him in El Paso.
Tell us, how were you as a kid?
Were you
a good kid, or were you?
My dad used to give us what was called the garbanzo. Like if you messed up, he'd stick this one knuckle out and he'd go, get upstairs. And as you went by, boom, right on the crown of the head.
Oh,
yeah. Just a little what for? Just a little what for? I turned out all right.
Well, it's so funny because we have a bunch of actors and comics, and I'm always amazed how my parents were not in that. It's like unless you're Charlie Sheen and your dad's Martin Sheen, most of the guys I know who are comics, their parents were like, "No, don't ever become a comic," and we all were like, "No, we're gonna go be comics."
My dad was cautious, but my mom was one of the first Latin American people to be ordained as a minister in the Methodist Church and Episcopal Church. And she was ordained in 1978 at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. She's a character, and she lived vicariously through me. She still does. My son is the Taco Bell Chihuahua. That's my son. He's on Reno 9. I'll literally pick my mom at the airport when she used to fly, and I go, oh, boy, here it comes. This is my son. This is the flight attendant. I told him that you were the Taco Bell dog. And I'm like, hi. So for my mom, no problem. For my dad, always very British, very reserved. Don't brag. Don't bring up anything. And I'll tell you, the night I won the San Francisco comedy competition, it was at Marines Memorial Theater in San Francisco. My dad was there, and he kind of was like, he's like, wow, son, great job. I could tell he was proud, but it was not like the great Santini, mean, but just like it was hard for him to express joy. But my mom was like, that's my son. This is my son. He gets it from me. So that's where I got, I got the half and half because I'm a parent now, and your kids do things, whatever endeavors they do. I'm proud of them, but I'm not like a Facebook splatterer guy or whatever that. I'm kind of like right in between. Like, I'm glad my daughter did this. Woo, that's it. I'm out.
That's funny. We talked about how Lachlan's dad, once Lachlan did the Tonight Show as a comic, then the parents were on board, right?
Same thing. Also played rugby and taught me about Monty Python. Very similar dad.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very crazy.
Funny. And Mike, did your dad get to see? I mean, you
Canadian.
had success early. Mike Bunin, did you? Your dad was excited when you did stuff.
They did. They saw me do pretty well for a few years there. Yeah, it was where they could see me on things and weren't too concerned at any point in time. My brothers are both attorneys, and they were like, yeah, they don't talk about us anymore. Now they talk about their son, the actor, on this show or that show. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
There's a great joke that John McDowell did. He was a great writer. But he goes, oh, it's hard being in my family. My sister's a lawyer. My brother, we're sitting at the dinner table. My sister's talking about being a lawyer. My brother's a doctor. Now, what about you, John? I go, I wrote this great new joke about sticking my dick in a toaster.
Dude, my brother's an admiral. My brother was an admiral, so I had to deal with that. So even when I got into acting, my father was this is the old, I told this before, it's part of my act from before, but when I first got into acting, I had got out of the Navy for a year. My father cut out the Navy times pay scale, highlight what I would have been making had I stayed in the Navy, and then put in the margin, pretty good, huh? And just mailed that to me. That was the only thing in the envelope.
Wow. I got one.
Weird. My mother sent me I got a letter from my mother, and I opened it, and it was an article, no letter, just an article from the Southern Florida newspaper, and it said Sylvester Stallone to start studio in Southern Florida. And my mother highlighted it and wrote in the margin, might want to get in on the ground floor.
Wow.
That was the dichotomy that I was dealing with. Like, my father was like, dude, you've messed up your life. And my mother was like, go for it. So there was a weird thing. Yeah.
My dad
passed before I got some real success. Like, he only saw a few of my credits. Like, he saw me on JAG. I was on JAG and I played Staff Sergeant Dempsey. And I kind of bragged to him, and I called him and said, "Hey, I booked a JAG episode. I'm going to be on this TV show JAG." And he goes, "Oh, really? What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm playing Staff Sergeant Dempsey." And he said, "Are you kidding me? You were an officer in the Navy. You got out to play an enlisted guy?" Ah, Jesus Christ! He was so upset.
Yeah,
that he was. The whole thing was a disaster. So it's weird.
I love it.
My dad wrote a contract out and gave it to me on my birthday. He put it in an envelope with $100 or $200, and it said, "I, Lachlan Patterson." He wrote the whole thing out. I kept it. "I, Lachlan Patterson, promise, upon not achieving my dreams as a stand-up comedian, will return to Canada, Vancouver, to pursue a career in either one of the following." And he had a list out of my father's endowment. And it had my name and date and a line for me to sign.
Wow.
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 I kept it.
That's awesome.
I remember being in, my brother moved to Dallas after he graduated from American Graduate School of International Management, Thunderbird University. He went to UC Davis. He was the reader. And I thought he supported me in comedy. And we're sitting in the hot tub in Dallas because I had him come see me. I got to drive his Acura. And I was still middling. And we're sitting in the hot tub. He's like, "Oh, is that you? That was good stuff tonight." He goes, "How long are you going to keep doing this comedy crap?" And I was like, "Oh, shit, I thought you had my back." But then once I got Rocco's Modern Life and I was doing voiceovers, that's when you could turn it around and see my brother bragging to his friends that it's interesting. Again, like Jamie's mom, full on. My dad never wrote like a contract, but I think my dad had like an internal contract. I think he wanted me because his father in Argentina in the 50s, they were preparing my dad and his sister. My grandfather told my father, like, when you're 18, you and your sister are moving out of the United States because the Argentinian government's a joke and you're going to be a civil engineer and that's it. Yeah. And so I think my dad fought hard against that, even though non-verbally you could tell he wanted me to have a regular career. He was afraid that we're going to go bankrupt or live off the street, right? Because back in those times in the 80s, I think it was just about the time where comics were getting sitcoms, the Ellen DeGeneres, the Marshall Warfields. And so it just wasn't as prevalent now. And so even for you to get on the Tonight Show, I mean, back then, getting on the Tonight Show, wow. But it was the select few, Yeah. There was less avenues for success back then. So it was very risky.
Well, let me ask you guys, do you like my father, all he wanted me to have was like a 9-to-5. Like he would have been so happy if I was like a plumber or I installed carpet. He just, for some reason he wanted, and it's so funny because he tried to control it so much that of course my sisters, everybody went off on their own tangent because we didn't want to do that. I don't feel that way about my kids. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, it's your life. You get one of them. I'll be there. I'll support you. I'll do anything I can. You got to choose it. Whatever you want to do, I'll help you. I go, try everything. Let's try this. Let's try that. See what you love. Do it. Do what you got to do. But I mean, who knows? I don't know. I have this weird.
That is so Zootopia. Try everything.
Yeah.
There, you've got it stuck in your.
I mean, maybe when they get into high school, then I'll start to settle down and go, all right, listen, maybe you should learn typing. I don't know.
Typing.
I know.
I think there is that buffer right now, right? They're at an age where there is sort of a buffer, but when you see them getting older and approaching adulthood, teenagers, bodies changing, you realize, oh, okay, maybe I should recommend something in terms of a stable path forward, especially having girls, because I don't fall in love with somebody like me. You know, we want them to fall in love with somebody stable, but do the fun jobs. You know.
I think for me, sorry.
If I learned anything from my father, it's like if the second you tell your daughters not to go out with a certain guy,
yeah, forget it.
My sisters brought some dudes home, or even I was like, wow, dude, seriously, you're trying to really piss dad off. Like you've gone above and you've like targeted this guy specifically just to piss dad off because my father was that kind of way. So I don't know.
It was Snake.
Like, whatever you got to do. I don't care. It's your life.
Was it Rob Reiner's Snake on the Partridge Family?
Yeah, he was. That's right.
Wow, yeah.
Oh, God. How
Lori
old
Partridge was dating Snake.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know my dad's expectations for me when I was a kid. He had he wanted me to be a football kicker. He wanted me to go to Alabama and then play in the NFL. So he put me in the soccer for a year so that I could learn to kick. And I ended up falling in love with that. And he was just like, we're not doing this. You're going to do football eventually. So then he moved on from that. And he was like, well, you're really good at drawing, so you should be an artist. And I tried to pursue that for a while, but it didn't really work out. And his real long-term goal for me was that I would become a minister. He went out and bought like this leather-bound, like very nice, like the just expensive Bible that I think back in the 70s he spent like $50 on it. And I could not be more anti-religious than I am at any given second that I breathe.
This is great, Dad. I want to be like Robert Mitchum in Night of the Hunter.
What is God, look at our references. Monty Python, Night of the Hunter is like 1956. I mean,
yeah, directed by Charles Lawton.
All right, slow down, Chief. Slow down.
Yeah, Shelley Winters in the car.
You guys, it's so funny because I still don't really have a plan for my kids at all. I'm like, it's your life, man. I'll help you and I'll let you try anything you want. Like we're going, I might send them to surf camp. Like I'm going to get them some wetsuits. We went boogie boarding the other day with some kids and I'm like, she loved it. And I was like, yeah, whatever you love, I'll support. But I have no plan for my kid. I'm with other parents. They're like, the kid's in first grade going to soccer practice like 4 nights a week. The dude's already like booking World Cup tickets for like 20 years from now. You're like, I have nothing in my head like that for my kids at all. Couldn't care less. It's your world. I'll support you, but I don't have a dream for you.
Yeah. I think if I can keep 2 of my 3 out of prison, I've done a good job.
2 out of 3. Them's good odds, man. That's better than Ty Cobb. Tell you what, that's Ted Williams territory.
I'd love for my boys. I'd love for my boys to play for like a proper European club. Like I'd love for them to play for Liverpool or whoever they can that's not Manchester.
City.
Listen, I would too.
Tottenham.
I wanted to play for England. I wanted to play for the Premier League, man.
Instead of Borussia Dortmund with Reina.
I'm good with that too. Klopp came from there, so Borussia. I don't have any problems.
Listen,
my youngest, they're both doing acting, and Riley's doing acting and voice acting and kind of like stuff like that. So I'm so careful not to be a stage parent and ruin them because she has bad experiences, and she goes, I want to quit acting. I go, okay, why? Because I'm not getting anything and I'm auditioning. Well, it sounds like you like acting when you get a job, but you hate auditioning and not getting it. And that could apply to anything. You like softball, but you're striking out because you're not working hard enough. So I want to pay attention to why you want to quit. If you get on a set and you hate it and it's horrible and people are treating you bad and you're missing your friends, that's one thing. Yeah, get the hell out. But if you hate it because you're not booking, that's a life lesson. You got to keep working hard at it. If you want to leave, that's fine. But I think you're leaving because it's tough. And so what I try to measure that kind of fathering into whatever endeavor. She could be doing that with school. So it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing with our kids.
That's a super tough thing. But the problem with acting, as we've talked about many times, is that you have to be okay going, I did my best.
Right. Yeah.
And for some reason, listen, it's not just about talent. Obviously, we know there's a look, there's a Q rating, there's a vibe.
Yeah.
How many followers do you? There's so many other things that outside your parameters. So you can. I was talking to a friend the other day. He goes, I didn't book it, but I had a great audition. I did the best I could, and I go, that's all I ever do. And if I don't, then I feel crappy. I do. I go, I didn't book it, but I that was exactly how I wanted to do it, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just gonna say, I would love for my boys to be super successful at anything and everything that they do, but I would absolutely settle for them just being happy, like with whatever they. If they deliver pizza and that's all they need, then as long as gas is back to $1 a gallon and cigarettes are $1 a pack, like it was when I was delivering, you'll make some money. But as long as you're happy, like, do whatever, man. I don't care.
That's what I try to teach my kids. It's like have empathy towards others and be happy doing what you're doing. And if you're not happy, do something different. So I don't know.
Yeah,
My kids too.
We'll see when our kids get older how we feel and how we adapt to it and if we change. Because right now it's a little bit easier because there's a little bit of buffer. But as it approaches those crucial years, we might go, So we'll see.
Maybe.
What is your style of parenting, Lachlan? How do you deal with your kid?
I try to give. Thanks for asking, man. I try to give them as much space as I can, and I really try to keep a hands-off approach. I try to. I don't know. I really felt like my whole life, my dad was. To this day, my dad's 83. If I try to get on a ladder, he'll go, "Lock, careful. Let me get up there." He's been very hands-on in my life, and then what happened to me? I ran away. I moved to Los Angeles and then became a comedian, and I'm sure as part of that was just trying to get out of the shadow of my father. I don't want to be a shadow. I want him to do all the things. I want him to be all the things in his mind. I want him to, when he gets on his bicycle and he just rips off, I want to stop anyone from getting anywhere near him. I don't want to get hit by a car, but I want him to fall and challenge himself, to balance himself and make mistakes. Like comedy, to be a good comedian, you have to fail and be okay with that a lot. And maybe an actor too. It requires failing. There's no other way for me to do it. I wish there was another way, but the only way I can do it is by taking risks that are way outside. My lady will say to me, "Don't say that on stage. It's not funny." And I'll say to her, "I got to try it. I have to try to know. I have to fail." And she'll go, "Don't do that. Don't risk it." And I want him to risk. So I give him an opportunity to take risks at a level that he can handle.
Yep. Yeah,
I love that, dude. I
That's
love
true parenting. You
love
got to
that
fail as
mentality.
parents. You got to have parental failures too in order to learn from your mistakes or forgive yourself. We all have bits about our kids. I have two famous bits about Riley falling off the bed when she was 5 months old, and the other one where we went to Westside Pavilion. I got excited to see a parking ticket machine because I hadn't prepaid. I jumped out. I left the car in drive. I paid my ticket. The car was gone, and she was rolling in a car by herself. It's a whole bit, but it was terrifying. And I told my wife, and she goes, "Hey, I forgive you. You were tired. You made this mistake." And it still affects her a little bit to this day. She's 10, and it happened when she was 3. But it's just like a bad parent. It was a
Wait,
bad
how does it? I love it's one of my favorite jokes here. Is how does it still affect her?
I think being left alone.
It affects her a little bit. 5 years later.
Leave her alone in a car that's moving. It really affects her.
Good long while she'd go,
thing that has wheels.
Just a tiny bit. It affects her tiny bit 5 years later.
Hey, she might be psychologically damaged, but it was a really great bit.
Dude, you really, Carlos, you need to cut that onto an album. That's like classic.
I know, yeah, I will, yeah. Well, I'm 58. I'm an older father. It wasn't my fault. I'm old. So, yeah, but we're going to make mistakes as parents. We're going to look the other. You always tell parents of newborns, like, your kid's going to fall. They're going to bang their head because they're top heavy. They're top heavy. They got big shuttlecock heads and weightless bodies, as I say in my. and they're gonna fall. And that's D. Bradley Baker, really great voiceover actor. When I was having my babies, he's like, he goes, "What do you do?" He goes, "Carlos, you read all these books." He goes, "You get them home, your kids are born." He goes, "It's all improv. It's all improv. They're going to surprise you no matter how much you think your parenting is working or not working. They're going to have successes despite the things that you didn't tell them, and they're going to have failures despite all the warnings and the preparations that you've given them." And then you just like, I didn't know this would work. And what works for you and I, Jamie or Lachlan or the others, is it may not work for another child or another. We all have our own dynamics, right?
What's the weirdest thing that's worked for everybody for parenting? Like, what's the weirdest parent hack that you've had? I can tell you mine. Mine is the butt pat. Like whenever you're the butt pat. So like when you have a baby that just will not go to sleep or is just stirred and just will not go, you hold the baby and you put your hand right on their butt and you just kind of do like a heartbeat tap. What you want to do is you want to find what your wife's resting heart rate is or her happy heart rate is, and you want to simulate that as like a tap on their butt cheek. The reason is the majority of the time that they're just swimming in the stomach, their butt's right by the heart, so they're feeling that on their butt. And you do that for about 3 to 4 minutes, they're out.
Yeah,
love that.
And for an older child,
It also works on me.
Yeah,
the butt pat.
My wife does it to me all the time, and I'm out like in 2 minutes.
Since I'm a therapist, I try to be direct. Since I'm a big therapist, I do therapy for the whole family. That's the joke there, right? But sometimes my wife is very combative and does not take any lip, and I parry. But then when my daughter goes off, my oldest one, I'll just come in and go, "You know what? I really don't want to be around you tonight. I'm not tucking you in because it's just not feeling good the way you're talking." And all right, so I'll see you tomorrow. And then she'll go, "Wait." So there's little sort of techniques that for me that seem to have worked most of the time when I just don't engage or come down to that level. Just let them know that wasn't cool, man. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't want to be around you. Sorry. So most of the time, where I'd say 95%, there's always the one, right? But maybe I'll tell the butt pat next time, though. That gets creepy at a certain age, though. Daughter's 13 years old.
Yeah.
You're chaperoning whatever middle school dance. Sorry, I'm just it's a butt pat thing.
I mean, I would probably say cut it at like maybe 9 or 10, maybe 11.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I love it.
but I've always, like, since day one, I've talked to my kids like they're adults. Like, even when she was like, Hannah was 6 months old, I've always been, dude, pull it together. Like, what are you doing? What's going on in your head right now? You're melting down, and I don't get it. Let's talk about it. Like, I'm still like that with her, and she's like, she's definitely, when she gets to high school, she's like, "Dad, just leave me alone," or something. But I'm always like, dude. They call me dude now because I say dude to them. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? What's going through your head? And they're always like, dude, I don't know. We have this crazy banter. Like, they're like 25-year-old people. It's crazy. So I don't know. And for me, I always I've never like dumbed it. It's like, Mike, for improv. The lesson in improv for me is always play to your intelligence. I hate when people play it down to stupid stuff, right? Yeah. And for some reason, that always stuck with me, even with my kids, when I was like, I've always played to the top of my intelligence with them, even though they were kids that never did it down. And now I feel like my kids have a pretty great vocabulary because I've used words around them in conversation that they're saying. And sometimes she's in second grade and I'll hear her say something and go, really? Like, where did that come from? But I feel like that from minute one for me was always like, I always treated them like adults in a weird way.
Good for you, Mike.
Same thing. Yeah.
My wife is responsible for them learning the F word. And when Riley was 3 and we were late for a birthday party and this guy cut me off, I punched his car and I went, "Fuck you, cunt." And she went, "What means cunt?" So Daddy taught her the C word.
Dude, that again is a 6-minute bit that is ridiculously funny. You're going to do an album. You got to do an album, brother.
But yeah, again, but I'm always interested in what other parents' techniques are and whether or not it will work in our respective families. We just have our own dynamics, and I marvel sometimes at you go to a restaurant and these kids have no iPads and they're coloring and they're like, wow, we've done really well with that. No iPads when you go out to restaurants, no devices, you know. But you look over at another table and everybody's like,
yeah.
So I don't know. It's fun to
I
watch.
use it as a weapon. If you read for 30 minutes, you can use your iPad for 10. Like I have this crazy math.
Ooh,
I do.
I like
I
that.
go, you show me you read, and yeah, we're doing other stuff.
Those are Vegas odds right there.
Honestly,
Not good
you're
odds.
giving up too much of the house, man. They'll read. I promise you, they'll read for less than 10 minutes. Trust me.
Exactly.
Mike was the guy. Here's how I knew he was from Vegas, because we would play on the set of My Boys. We'd put like ping pong or something else. Mike would lose like 10 games in a row, and he'd be like, and then he'd go, "All right, let's put some money on it." And of course, everyone would go like, "Yeah, absolutely." And then that would be the one game Mike would win. You'd be like, "You mother son of a gun!"
Oh,
Man. I just learned not
He
to
lives there.
Never gambling with you. He's terrible.
Paul Newman, the hustler.
He's a total hustler. And don't
Put
ever
a
bowl
little
it.
something on
Bowls
it.
like a 120, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Oh, you want to play a buck a pin?" And you're like, "Did you just bowl a 260, dude?"
No, that's not accurate. That's not accurate.
Pulls out his custom Earl Anthony ball.
I told what's his name. I said, "Look, I haven't bowled in a long time. Don't go by that score. I'm not gambling with you. You're gonna get mad. You're gonna get your feelings hurt. We're not gambling." And Kaler egged it on, and we all gambled. And yes, I bowled. I think somewhere in the 240ish range, probably 230.
Whoa!
But I told.
That's the same shit.
I told him. I said, "Don't bowl."
Mike, will you tell the story about when you flew on wasn't your name on a ticket or something crazy?
I love that.
Did you fly some time where your dad gave you, go, "Here's your flight, here's your ticket"?
Well, yeah. I mean, I can't really tell it. This is a longer story than in this moment.
A few minutes.
When we moved to Las Vegas, my father handed us all plane tickets, and I was like, I'm Michael Shapiro. Who the hell is this? He's like, just get on the plane. I was like, all right. We all had different. We didn't fly. I don't know why, but we didn't leave. We didn't leave Virginia with our real names. I weirdly moved across the street from a guy named Michael Shapiro. I'm still friends with him.
Oh wow.
Super funny. You're gonna have, and Mike has a show eventually coming with his stories about his father, so that's why I kind of asked him to come do it.
Wow, that's great.
Here's my last question.
There's a lot more to that. Yeah.
There's a lot more. There's too much more. But yeah, I hear, like, we golf, and I'll hear like 2 hours of stories. I'm like, dude. But that's for another day. That's a Bronx tale for you at some point. Here's my question. Go ahead, Mike.
I said my dad was a good athlete. My dad coached all our baseball teams. Taught us everything in that realm. But my parents, in particular, they never put us on like any. There was no restriction. Like we knew we messed up, and we honestly they could make you just feel so because they would just look at you and say like, and you chose to do that. And they'd make you go over and over again. So let me say, when you got to the point where this was happening, you weighed the decisions and you honestly felt that was the right decision. That was the best decision to make. And wow, okay, wow. I mean, they would just make you feel like shit for messing up.
I feel like I do that.
I'm saying it worked. It worked.
I don't mean to say it in a weird way, but I say it more in a like wait a minute, back up. You did this? What? I mean, all right, whatever. Fine, terrible choice, but.
Are we all able as parents when we see our kids get hurt or see the sight of blood to like keep it in perspective and go, "Whoa, looks like you fell. Let's have a look at you," instead of like, "Oh shit." It's so important to be that person that's in control when your child has an injury. Like, if my kids got into skateboarding and I saw a broken wrist, no, I don't know if I could hold it. I try when they fall or get hurt to really approach it with like, "What's going on? What happened? What's going on?" Are you able to do that? Are you guys able to contain yourselves when your kids get hurt? Or
I am, yeah.
the majority of time that I deal with my boys, like I always look at them, I'm like, do we need to amputate? And they're just like, no, we don't need to cut this off. And I'm like, okay, cool, then you can survive that. The only time that I really had any difficult time, like not being, do we need to amputate, was back in January. We went up to Flagstaff, and we were just doing an Airbnb, and it was really nice. They had this little hill. We bought some snow sleds, and we let the boys go down it. And I was having fun with Sully, so I decided to spin him when I threw him down once, and his head caught the back of a post that somebody had pulled up and left on the side of the fence, and he cracked his skull right open. And I didn't know what to do because I was over there. I was like, "Are you okay, buddy? Do we need to?" Holy shit! Because it was just like ketchup in the snow, and we had to carry him in. And I'm just sitting here like, I don't know what the fuck we're gonna do. And my wife's a medical professional, and she's like, "Well, kids get head hits, and he's aware. He's terrified, but you need to be okay." And the Airbnb we were at, the guy was like, "Yeah, I'm a paramedic. Kids hit their heads. You might want to do stitches. We can throw some salt in it. I mean, we can check back here in a little bit." And meanwhile, he's bleeding all over their couch. And then 45 minutes later, sure enough, he's just like, "I want to go sledding again." I was like, "All right, cool. Well, let me go to the fucking store and get you a helmet first."
Yeah.
Sure enough, he hit his head 2 more times, but he had a helmet on this time, so I didn't give a shit.
There you go.
Oh my God. How old was he?
5.
Okay. I got a couple more, 3 years.
You got a little bit more time.
You got a couple. Listen, hey, we gotta wrap this pretty soon. My wife's gonna be like, "What are you guys doing in there?"
Mine too, man. I'm sure she's mad at me.
Here's my last question.
She's always
mad.
mad.
Do you guys think you are better fathers than your father was? Mike, for Sally, obviously, that would be it. Do you think you're a better parent than your parent was?
I think it's relative. I think we're better equipped and we have more information than we used to as when they were parenting. And I waited till I was 48 to get married, and 49 was my first child. So I think I had the advantage of age and attending therapy. But it's relative because I haven't had the whole experience yet, right? My girls are 10 and 7. And so I have to make it through high school before I could qualify that statement whether I'm better. That's a hard one. That makes me feel guilty.
I know. I don't know why I asked. Except that I think about my dad, and I think I would do things differently than he would. Yeah. But he might look at me and go, "No, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing."
I mean, for me, there's a division because, like, we have Sully, and I think when you have 2 kids, there's a part of you that just kind of says that, when you're going through your first kid, you fuck everything up. I mean, it doesn't matter how big or small, you screw up perpetually. And when you have that second kid, it's just kind of like, all right, I remember how I mishandled this with Sully, so I'm gonna do it differently.
Yeah.
And in doing that with your youngest, you're able to help your oldest too, because it kind of shifts your mindset for where they are. I think for my dad, I think he did better with us up to the point where we are right now with my boys. And I kind of aspire to do better. I think when he did later on, the big thing he instilled for me was movies. I love movies. And a lot of my good memories with my dad are about movies. So I remember him checking me out of school and taking me to see Terminator 2. That was a great, fantastic kid movie.
He took you out of school. He checked you out.
He's like, "Oh, he's got to go to a doctor's appointment, so we got to fuck off." And we went off and rode on a Harley and went and watched fucking Terminator 2. It was great. Awesome. That was a cool thing.
That's a cool thing.
Cut to me going to a JoJo Siwa concert with my girl.
Who?
JoJo Siwa, Nickelodeon, blonde hair. Come on, Siwa bows. Come on.
All right. Well, actually, let's go out on that then, because that's a great story about what's the coolest thing your dad did when you were a kid. That's really cool, dude. Where he was like. I feel like I do that with my kids. I'm like, because I don't care. I'll pull them out of stuff all the time to go do stuff. I think that's super cool. Mike, did your dad ever do something like that when he just pulled you out? You have actually a picture of your dad and you at Wayne Newton.
Yeah, I was just saying, my dad, we did a lot of cool. I can tell you this, my dad did a lot of cool things for me. But what I remember most of the times that there was an unexpected, like you couldn't figure out why, and then there was a weird lesson. Like I was 15, and he kept telling me all week, he's like, I'm going to take you for the best breakfast in the city on Sunday, but you got to get up early. And I was like, all right. So every day, remind me, like, early. Be ready to walk out the door at 6 a.m. Sunday. I'm like, all right. So get up early on Sunday. He's in a suit and tie. We leave at 6 a.m. We go to White Cross Drugs on Las Vegas Boulevard, which is a pharmacy and a breakfast counter in a not so great area of the Strip. It's in between the Strip and downtown. And so it is, I mean, people that have not been to bed in 24 hours, people that are just getting up, people from everywhere sitting and eating. And next to me is a guy with a giant like dagger tattoo, and he's trying to kill a fly on this table while I'm trying to eat. And my dad sees that I'm nervous by this, and we're eating our breakfast, and he lights a cigarette, and he looks at me and he goes, you want to be with the people? You got to eat with the people.
Oh, I love it.
That's a
And then
great
we
lesson.
sat there and we ate. And that was it. That was my life lesson from that. So those were the things that my dad would do occasionally where I'd be like, oh, all right. I got to point taken. Like, you know, not everything's going to be perfect. Yeah.
We take our girls to the end of Lincoln Boulevard, Marina Del Rey, Venice, because there's all walks of life of people there, the homeless, the dregs, the weirdos, whatever. And they don't care. They've been at the beach all day. They get their Cold Stone ice cream, and we want to get them used to seeing people. I took Riley on the train to see an LAFC soccer game, and on the way back, we had the trifecta of heroin user, a sleep stinky homeless guy, and ranty, I'm going to kick everybody's ass, yelling at everybody on one cart. And she got to see it all. And I went, this is the side of LA that a lot of kids don't get to see. So enjoy.
And if you ever get into heroin, this is what you'll look like. So
yeah. It was your breakfast counter experience, you know. Those kids won't, you didn't forget it, and neither will they. They see some things, but interesting.
Dude, when I was 14, my father took me to his car dealership and made me work in the car wash on weekends.
Whoa.
I worked in a car wash. In winter, New Hampshire winter, where you're like, well, in my brain, I was like, well, no one's going to wash their car. It's horrible out. And then they were like, oh, no, everyone's washing their car because it's covered in salt and ice. And it was the worst. He was like, hey, how'd that feel? Horrible. He goes, welcome to the world. I was like, okay, my brother, here we go.
Wow.
I think I made like $3 an hour or something. Yeah,
that's old school minimum wage.
I don't know. Lachlan, you got one more from your dad when you were a kid?
I mean, my dad it wasn't like that. But he did show me a lot. Like, he had a Volkswagen van. He drove with the door off, the sliding door off. And he coached rugby. So he always had like 8 kids in this thing, like no seatbelts, giant bag of rugby balls in the center. And he was kind of a bend the rules kind of dad. And he taught me about, he only had 2 tapes in the entire car. He had the 2 Ronnies. I don't know if Carlos knows that.
Ronnie Corbett and
Yes, I know Ron. Yes,
the 2 Ronnies. You guys know this, right?
Yeah.
So tonight it's good night for me, and it's good night from him.
Yeah, exactly.
He totally remembered because he loved British humor. And he had he just happened to have Steve Martin as well. Comedy Isn't Pretty, and I think that was the album, and that's the one that I connected with. And so even though he didn't want me to be a comedian, he had no idea he was actually building the comedian inside of me.
He created you the same way my parents kind of did. Yeah, we look back, they taught you, but they actually kind of made you exactly the way you were supposed to be. We didn't invent this crazy thing in our head where I was like, my mother loved movies. They took me to like crazy R-rated movies when I was like, I remember watching The Gauntlet with my mother when I was a kid. Sandra Locke's naked, and I'm like a little kid. My mother going, hey, I'm not sure this is supposed to be happening. But she loved movies, and she kind of made me an actor in a weird way. So it's funny. We sit there and we talk about how we want our kids to do a certain thing, but the way we act is exactly the way they come out.
Yeah. My kids have my rage. when they scream at the top of their lungs and yell, and I went, oh well, some of me is rubbing off.
Yeah, it's Sully for me too.
That's Sully. All right, we got to roll, dude. It's almost 9.
It's all
like my wife's gonna be like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
I know.
All right, let's get these guys out. Thanks to Mike Bunin, my brother. Thanks. We got you back again and talk more stories about your dad. Carlos, love you, brother. Thank you so much for coming.
See you, Carlos.
Stories. John Nixon, you're a rock star. Thanks for coming in and being part of it. That was a long one. That was a very big homage to our parents.
It was. I felt good. It was interesting to get to see other dads' perspectives on how they got to where they are and where they're going with their own. Because obviously you and I have different styles of parenting from even each other, and to get to see all these different perspectives kind of lets you look at the world in a different way, and maybe I'll tweak some things a little bit because I liked some of the stuff that I heard tonight. So very, very cool. It was a real cool experience.
I thought so too. It's so funny because you sit there and you think you're alone in the world about all the different things we're going through. And the truth is we're all going through the exact same path, man. And we sit there and we think we're so like wound up in our own thoughts at night. We lay in our bed and we like get wound up and we're so lost in our own moment. Everyone's going through the same moment, man. We really are. It's crazy. You talk to every other dad and it's like, oh, that's exactly how I feel. Oh, I did punch a lamp. Yeah, I screamed at my kids. Like, you can't help it. It's just the way it is, and it's part of the life. And so the sooner you kind of accept it and go, this is the job, the sooner you can like sit back and enjoy it a little more.
Well, for me, and you and I talked about this before the show started, I was talking with my wife that, my dad and I were not close, and I was trying to remember a story that meant something. And I'm like, I just don't have any great memories there. And my son looked at me and said, well, don't worry, Dad, I have a lot of great memories with you. And to me, I was like, no, maybe I am doing something right.
You are, dude. I mean, I see your posts and stuff, and I think sometimes, the cycle changes. Everyone's like, oh, the cycle just repeats. It doesn't, man. Everyone's totally unique, and we're all on our own path, and everyone's on their own journey, and they've got to get through it and stuff. So, the fact that whatever came before you with your dad is irrelevant. I always tell my wife, I go, none of that matters. We're here. This is now. We're dealing with these situations. It's not like anything we've ever dealt with before, and we've got to get through this, and this is our journey. So, I mean, I see you with all your kids, and it's gorgeous, and that's why it's, that's why this show's kind of fun, because I feel like we're both coming from it, at it from a point of, trying to do the best we can, and that's all you can do.
All you can do.
Yeah.
Well, everybody out there, have a fantastic Father's Day this weekend. Do stuff with your kids, and enjoy yourselves.
We'll see you guys next Tuesday on the regular day for The Parents.
The Parents Lounge. Good night, everybody.